Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the March 16th, 2026 Portsmouth Town Council meeting. Tonight is a special meeting to review our new and improved sign ordinance. If you could all please direct your attention to the entrance you came in, the entrance that is behind you to your left, and also the one behind Mr. Reese, should there be an emergency and we need to evacuate, you would please go outside and either, for tonight, I would go in your car since it's going to be pouring rain out, rather than going across the street. And we'll wait for first responders to let us know when we can come back in the building. If you could all now please rise and join me in a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence for our men and women in harm's way, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. So tonight we'll be holding a public hearing to review our sign ordinance in order to make some adjustments and modifications to it. If you are going to come to the podium, would you please state your name and your address for the public record? And also address any questions that you may have through the chair, and we will direct them to the proper person to answer those questions. Do I have a motion to open the
roll call?
Oh, roll call. Okay, sorry.
Mr. Thiessen?
Here.
Ms. Blank? Here. Ms. McDowell?
Here.
Ms. Patton? Here. Mr. Payor?
Here.
Mr. Reese?
Here.
Mr. Hamilton?
I am here. My apologies.
Mr. President, I make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Mr. Solicitor, would you like to kick us off as to where we're at in this? I know we've had 2 hearings at the planning board who have passed it through to us. You and your staff have made numerous changes and updates. Would you like to review some of those, or would you just like to carry on in the public hearing, answer questions as we go?
I think it's probably worth just getting the public comment. I think we've, I've been in a number of public meetings up to this point between the planning board and elsewhere, and have a sense, I think, of the general commentary that would get us to the point where we can finalize this, or you can finalize this. But I think, this is an opportunity for the public to sort of weigh in now that there's been a good amount of time to digest this since the initial draft came out. Obviously, the planning staff has been instrumental in making this happen. And I think if there was additional, comments, that Leah or others would like to, restate, in addition to the report that was part of the record, I think that's fine. But I really think this is a chance for the public to have their input, and we can see if there's something that adds to the conversation and maybe adds to your view of what should be adopted.
Thank you. Members of the council have opportunity once we get through the public hearing, close the public hearing, to make any comments or ask questions at that point in time. If you do come to the podium again, please state your name and your address for the public record. And also please keep your comments and questions directly specifically to the ordinance and the changes therein. So the floor is open if anybody would like to come up and make a comment or a question. Please come up front, Ms. Pickett. Yes, sir. And if you could please, when you do speak directly into the front of the microphone. You can move the microphone if you need to.
Okay.
It's a directional mic. It makes it easier for everybody to hear.
I live on Clearview Avenue, and I've been there for 10 years, and I've witnessed the corner for like 7 years, I guess.
Mr. Pickett, just because I know who you are doesn't mean everybody does. I just need you to say.
Oh, I'm sorry, William Pickett,
Thank you, sir.
96 Clearview Avenue in Portsmouth. There's one thing that I brought up a few months ago when I asked to rectify the situation. And but one of the things they told me is the ACLU was there and they couldn't do it and so forth. But there's an old Sunoco sign that stands there and there's 4 rebars that are in the ground holding it up. They're rusted. There's no concrete base around it. And I think it's ready. It could come down with the wrong force of wind or whatever. So I think that sign should be taken down. I feel very strongly about the toilet bowls and the fishing poles and so forth. And I'm
Again, Mr.
hopefully
Pickett,
that's,
I'm gonna ask you just to stick to the improvements to the sign ordinance and not,
okay. There's several signs in that property that are disgusting. And I'd like to have them removed. I think it's common sense to have them removed. And that's about it.
thank you, Mr. Pickett. Appreciate that. We will follow up on the dangerous nature of rebar sticking up on the property. Mr. DiPiola.
Mike DiPiola, 37 Walton Brook Lane. Good evening, members of the council. My name is Mike DiPiola.
Mr. DiPiola, can you just pull that down a little bit so you can,
This
yes, just so we can hear you better. That's all. Thank you.
property at 1074 East Main Road. Actually, my LLC owns the property. I am here tonight to speak on the proposed changes to the sign ordinance. Specifically, the amortization clause and the new size restriction. While I understand the town's desire to modernize the code, I urge the council to consider the following points. 1, respect for pre-existing rights. For years, my signs have served as a vital forum for personal and political expression. Forcing the removal or reduction of established lawfully existing signs via a 3-year clock feels less than a safety measure, and my sign's not falling down, by the way.
Mr. DiPiola.
And more like a targeted effort to phase out specific voices. In Rhode Island, a grandfathered property rights are cornerstone of a fair zoning. The burden of proof on safety. The claim that these signs are traffic distraction is often cited. Actually, I had a visit from Portsmouth Refinance one night at 9:30 at night. 9:30 at night. There's only 4 people on duty at that time. 9:30 at night.
Mr.
People
DiPiola,
showed up at my front door.
stick to the sign ordinance, please.
Be backed by data. Without evidence of a specific safety hazard at my location, these restrictions appear to be content-based, aiming to regulate the message by restricting the medium. Consistency and fairness. For an ordinance to be truly content neutral, as required by the Supreme Court, we all know how the court system turned out last time we were there, it must be enforced with total consistency. If the town moves to limit my First Amendment signs while allowing larger commercial or real estate display elsewhere, it risks falling back into the same unconstitutional patterns that led to a federal litigation in the past. We're all very familiar with that situation, are we not? Recently, Portsmouth approved a commercial sign, and then a week after they installed it, they added on to the sign. And when I asked zoning, he says it's now a First Amendment sign. So we exceeded the 32 square feet. They added on additional, probably another, say 16 square feet. And now that whole sign becomes valid and it becomes a First Amendment sign. And Portsmouth, since then, has ignored that situation. Even after consulting with the solicitor, he agreed with me, but nothing has been done. A commitment to free speech. The First Amendment is not a temporary right. It doesn't expire after 90 days. It shouldn't be squeezed into a 6 square foot box simply because it is viewed as visual clutter. These signs are my way of participating in our democracy. And as being an immigrant from Italy, I truly appreciate this country. and the Supreme Court has long recognized the home as a unique and protected place for such speech. I ask the council to reconsider the amortization period and ensure that any new rules respect the existing federal consent judgment, which I have sent earlier today, and the rights of all Portsmouth residents to speak their mind on their own land. Thank you for your time.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. Thank you.
As it relates to property in question and this change to the sign ordinance, I don't understand how, given the consent agreement that you hold with Mr. DiPaola, you are going to change the ordinance for every other resident, homeowner, and business in town, but allow him, due to his consent agreement, to continue on the way that he has. Another big problem that I have with that property is that not all speech is protected speech. I have come to the town hall, I have gone to the local police department. This gentleman had cyberstalked me to the point of using fake aliases and writing "suck my dick Tara" on one of the signs. So if I have
Tara.
to see it every time I drive by there, it's
Understood.
bad enough to hear it here.
The microphone's on.
That's not protected speech. And not a single one of you has done anything to protect me or the children that have to see that. Not all speech is protected speech. And frankly, it's appalling that the police department would not do anything about it. It's appalling that town hall would not do anything about it. And the amount of time that this gentleman wastes of yours with his nonsense took away from the building department doing really true important work. And I do think that his Sunoco sign is probably the next piece of concrete that's going to give way in town.
Mr. DiPiola, we're not going to have a discussion back and forth.
Just one more comment.
No.
She started talking about all this other stuff that's irrelevant to the sign, but it's basically my signs are a rebuttal because of the selective enforcement. That's what it stems from. And allowing
Selective
someone to
enforcement.
build a house, an entire house without a permit, in violation of everything else, and
That
that
has
the town,
nothing to do
nothing
with
to
this
do
evening.
about it.
Please sit
It does
down.
do it because
Please
she's bringing
sit
other
down.
matters, so that's
Please
what I'm
sit down. It
talking.
has nothing to do with the sign ordinance. Yes, ma'am. Sir, sorry. That's all right.
My name's Timothy Donegan. I live on Clearview Ave. We moved there about 6 years ago. 97. Thank you. My son attends Portsmouth High School. He's graduating this year. He went to Portsmouth Middle School. I come from this perspective of being a father in that neighborhood. I'm stunned that it's been allowed to persist as long as it has. I don't know, Michael, I've seen him around. I don't know if he's a good man or a bad man. I'm not up here to decide that. I don't think he's a bad guy.
Just stick to the.
You know what I
sign
mean?
ordinance.
But I come from a point of having a son on that street, and he had to take the bus, which was provided for Portsmouth High School, to get picked up at the bottom of the street, and the middle school. And we talked to the school committee to get him to go to the school through Middle Road. So he had to hop the fence and walk through the neighborhood, because standing down there at the bottom of the street with all the swears and the verbal assault that he would have been exposed to is just absolutely unbelievable. The situation that's going on in the world right now, I would have hoped that Michael, having the opportunity and money that apparently he has, would have utilized that space in a much more positive way to get any kind of speech and point across to the community with kids that are having a hard time right now in school, and there's just a situation in the world. I would have hoped by this time, after 4, 5, 6 years, that Michael would have had a change of heart and done something different with his signs and tried to bring some good into the community. So we're heartbroken being there. My wife is on a trip right now, or she would be here, and she would be probably saying things a lot differently than I am. But I'm not buying all the hoopla with Mike. I think it's some kind of a charade. I don't think he's a bad person per se. Getting angry over this situation really doesn't accomplish much. But, you know, whatever you guys can do to get rid of this would be great. And Mike, I wish you would have done something different, you know?
Didn't do what they did to
You know?
we wouldn't be here.
Anyone else? Anderson?
Good evening. Stephen Anderson, 234 Headley Street, Maplewood Farm. I'm asking again for the council to consider all farms, farm breweries, wineries be exempt under the right to farm in the town of Portsmouth under the sign ordinance from all of it. And I also would like to have the council take into consideration the proximity of signs near school bus stops for children. I don't have any kids, but I can't believe these are coming out of my mouth. The proximity of a school bus stop or school zone for the children. We can only do so much to protect them. They have the internet, but you can do your job as a council. Again, I'm here so the farmers, farm breweries, wineries be exempt from all sign ordinances under the right to farm in this town. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Kathy, is anybody online? Nope. Anyone else? And there's nobody online who would like to speak? Because this would be your turn. Mr. Pickett, if you want to come back and make another comment, if you can keep it to the sign ordinance, that'd be great. Thank you, sir.
That was Tim, my neighbor, by the way, so,
I have to ask you to say your name and.
okay. William Pickett, 96 Clearview Avenue. I want to reemphasize about the children walking down the street. My neighbors have children, and they walk past this place with the signs, and it's horrendous to these people. They don't understand why a person can have these signs out there and be so, I don't want to get involved in that, but so that's the children is the main thing for me. And this distraction of traffic. It's people will come by there and they have to look at what's going on there. There's more than just signs, of course, there. But the other objects in there are really signs themselves of a disrespect for the people on our street in the town of Portsmouth. So I met Mike once. He swore at me once. That's the last time I saw him. But again, I'm half Italian. So I understand, I guess, where he's coming from. I'm not really sure though. But from a human standpoint, you got to take the signs down to help the children, distraction. And I think there's nobody in this room that would say they're okay. They're fine the way they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pickett.
Just one more brief comment, then I'll stop.
Did he feel?
This, Mike DiPaola. Ironically, he's worried about my signs, but he's doing illegal electrical work that somebody else is doing that he's not doing, because I know for a fact the guy
Mr.
that's
Pickett,
doing it.
Mr. Pickett.
So ironically, he's not doing it.
Mr. DiPiola, stop. Hey, Mr. Pickett, stop, please. We're not going to make accusations that are unfounded as per usual. Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment on the sign ordinance specifically and changes there too? Last chance, anyone online who would like to make a comment or have a question on the sign ordinance?
Can we ask questions?
Yes, you can ask questions pertaining to the sign ordinance, yes. From the microphone, please.
Tara Woods, 39 Windrock Circle. I'd like to know why the vulgarity and the speech that should not be protected has not been dealt with.
Because vulgarity is in the eye of the beholder, and the Supreme Court of the United States states that vulgarity is protected free speech.
Not if it's sexually explicit.
Well, if it's sexually explicit to yourself or to somebody else, you would have to make a specific charge against that individual.
Well, I tried.
No, you would have to make a specific charge to the individual.
I tried.
I'll refer to our.
Yeah, it might be helpful just to state a bit of the background that seems to be the issue that most people are concerned about when it comes to the sign ordinance, right? So the town entered into a consent decree in 2021 that prevents it from enforcing against Mr. DiPiolo's properties in town. And that was entered into, as best I can tell, I wasn't here then, and it was a prior council, but I from reading the record, it was entered into because the sign ordinance that the town had and has today was not content neutral. And so Mr. DiPiolo and his attorneys, I think rightfully argued that there were problems with the town ordinance that were in violation of everyone's free speech and First Amendment rights. So part of the goal in making these amendments that we're talking about tonight is to get past some of those defects in the ordinance that made it more difficult to enforce just the basic things that you can enforce on: time, manner, place, the size of signs. All those things should be enforceable no matter who it is for any property of any type in the town of Portsmouth. That consent decree was specific to one individual because he's the one that sued. And so I think what we do by adopting this ordinance is give the town staff the ability to go back to equal enforcement across the town, and to address issues not based on the content, not based on what somebody considers vulgar or what have you. As the president of the council points out, we can't, if you have to read the sign, then you're enforcing it wrong. That's the rule that the Supreme Court put down essentially. So it's not the content, but time, manner, place, size, all those things you can limit, as any town should be able to control the look, the feel, whatever of their town. Now, the second question that comes up is, okay, at some point things bleed over into sexually explicit content that is not protected. That is a very specific and gray area, I guess, let's put it that way. So I can't sit here and tell you today that any one particular sign, and I don't know which ones you're referencing, but I can guess, would be prohibited under the new ordinance. But the town, at least by adopting it, will have the chance to ask that question, perhaps ask that question of the judge at some point. And up until, since 2021, the town has had its hands tied in doing any enforcement on, and really, even though it was only a consent judgment with one constituent,
I've read it.
the fact is that the judge pointed out defects that were judicially determined to be defective, right? That the ordinance was too content-based and it wasn't enforceable, even though it was only naming one person. It really wasn't enforceable against a number of people in many ways. So what the town's doing is untying its hands by adopting a new ordinance. We can't make promises. I don't think the town can make promises as to what the effect will be or when the effect will take place. But I can tell you that this ordinance has been vetted by as many experts as we can get to look at it, including the ACLU, the people that supported the lawsuit that got us the consent decree. And I think we've got something that is going to stand up to constitutional muster.
Well, I hope so. Because I don't think any Portsmouth residents should have to drive by that place multiple times a day and see what I see with my name and telling me what to go do.
I understand your plight, and I agree with you 100%. There's only one person that can fix that, and he won't.
Oh, I'm well aware.
So unfortunately, the mentality of a certain person is what we're dealing with, not necessarily a sign ordinance.
Well, you you know, I moved here in 2021. I don't know who was all involved and responsible for this consent agreement, but it really did a disservice to a lot of Portsmouth residents.
I don't disagree with you.
And I don't want to see my name up on that board telling me to.
I understand.
So if this passes, I hope you'll protect the residents of this community because we deserve it.
That is what we are trying to do.
And for what it's worth, Mr. President, there are other avenues. You know, the code enforcement is maybe not the best avenue for protecting anyone against those sort of things. There are harassment and cyber stalking and other laws on the books in the state of Rhode Island. And you know, I don't know any of these facts, so I'm not trying to weigh in legally. But I would certainly suggest that there are avenues outside of the town council and the town planning and zoning department that may be availed.
Again, I went to the police department. I went with photos. I went with all the direct messages that I received through social media. They wouldn't even take a report. All they said is it's protected speech and threw their hands up. So I have tried multiple times to address this. And it's not right. All I did was have a difference of opinion about what I was seeing, voiced it online, and he took that as an opportunity to attack me. And this body allowed it.
Mr. President, before,
Mr. Gleason.
I wanted to comment before this woman left the podium, but Mr. Scione, could you just tell us, the general public, what changes will happen when if we enact this ordinance as far as this gentleman here that's being complained against? What will the town see next? What does it do for the town?
Well, I can't speak to the the staff and their time and priority and next steps. But as a general matter, I can say that upon passage of this, the consent decree will in large part no longer be applicable because the language of the consent decree was that the town can enforce under its current ordinance, and this will no longer be this will be a new ordinance. And I think we've addressed the concerns that the judge raised in the case that led up to the consent decree and the language of the consent decree, however limited it is. But we've addressed, I think, the issues that put the town in that bind. And so now the town can go ahead and enforce, again, not against content, not against words or names or anything like that, but we can enforce against the time, manner, place, the size, how long a sign is up, whether it's a structural safety issue, all those things that anyone in this town should be subject to in terms of code enforcement will now be applicable to everybody in town, and it hasn't been since 2021.
Will the 3-year sunset agreement apply to this property?
I don't think so. I think
Does that
the
go
enforcement
away?
can happen promptly. I don't think that 3-year agreement is relevant to that sort of issue. I think there are I think that is for signs that were essentially grandfathered in, to just use a shortcut term, right? If they were approved under prior code, or for whatever reason they were not compliant but had been approved previously, that's one thing. I think in this case, it's a different set of facts. It is not. There was never approval given for any of these things. It was just that the court said we can no longer try to enforce their disapproval. And that does not get you in under the 3-year time frame, as far as I'm concerned. I defer to staff to see if they have a different interpretation, but no, I don't think that comes into play.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Comments? There are none online. Council will have their opportunity once we close the public hearing. Once we do close the public hearing, there'll be discussion with the council to decide how we would like to proceed, whether it is to amend, make changes, or pass the ordinance as it is. We can make changes and bring it back for a final vote at another meeting as quickly as next Monday if they're small changes. That could be worked in overnight. Otherwise, we do it at a future meeting. So, last chance if anybody wants to make a comment from anyone other than the council. Anyone else online? If you would like to make a comment, please raise your hand now. There isn't a delay in Zoom, right? Pretty quick. Yeah. Right. Hearing none, I have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. I will ask the council for anyone who has comments or questions or any amendments or changes that you would like to see, whether it's timeframes, sizes, or anything to that effect. Mr. Reese, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, now, Portsmouth has state roads that go through our town. And I was just wondering, now, the signs in Portsmouth, but they're on the state road. Do they have to meet state criteria and then the town applies next? Because I would think that the state wouldn't want signs in their right of way, like coming down East Main Road, there's so many feet on either side. And I haven't ever heard this addressed. What right do we have in that area? Or does any signs that somebody put on only get affected when they're on their property set back from the,
In
State
terms of
road.
being placed in the right of way?
Yeah.
Or the content in the right of way?
no,
Just
being
placed.
placed there? Because I think the state doesn't allow signs to be put up in there.
Yeah, that's correct. So our ordinance applies on the properties themselves, right? So that's one analysis. If it's on somebody's property, then we have the right to regulate it. The state also has the right to regulate things that might interfere with visibility or pose a danger on a state road, state highway, as we do on our own local roads as well. I think what gets confusing is that the boundaries of roads aren't often clear, right? So the 30 feet from the center line or 50 feet from the center line or whatever that might be, may not be where the pavement stops and the grass begins. And so it's sort of a case by case basis. You have to know where the meets and bounds of that road are to know what's a right of way, what's potentially interfering with, or on state land versus private property or town property.
Yeah, and I was just wondering, that would control what we can control as far as that. Because if we went after somebody, but they were actually on state land and not town property, and I don't know whether somebody's property goes all the way to the street,
Yeah, and again, that's case by case. It depends on the road and it depends
Or-
on the property, but yeah, we
Or,
can't enforce a violation on a state, I mean, like maybe that.
Well, when somebody, Mr. DiPiolo, you can sit down. Your comment period is over. When somebody puts in a application for a new business.
Yep.
They have to apply for curb cuts if it's on a state road.
To RIDOT.
And they would also have to apply, I would assume, to the positioning of a sign.
Yeah, if the state would even consider that, right? That's the question. I think that they have to put it on their own property, not in the state right of way. And yeah, the curb cut, any curbing that goes along with the driveway, all those things are DOT's.
And if there was an issue with it and it was placed in the wrong place, somebody could make a complaint to the state.
Correct.
And DOT would come down and look and see if they would correct it.
That's right.
But what I was saying, our jurisdiction wouldn't start until that defined point was met.
That's right. If it's up to
That's all
the
I
state
wanted to
essentially to enforce a violation.
I
in
just
their
don't want
own
us to be
real estate.
enforcing things that we don't really have control over because it's really a state problem and not a town problem.
I understand. Yeah,
And I
Yeah.
think there's places that has happened.
that may be.
Is that all, Mr. Reese? Or all for now? Well, if you would like to continue or? Go ahead, Ms. McDowell, sure. You're ready.
In terms of the ordinance itself, do we have an idea of how many non-conforming signs there are in town I'm assuming that some people have probably been notified that their signs are non-conforming under the old ordinance. Do we have any idea going forward how many are in non-conformance with this new ordinance?
I don't have any idea.
Aaron or Leah, even a ballpark. Doesn't have to be specific. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for asking the question, Ms. McDowell. As for non-conforming signs, we had a conversation, staff, along with you after the planning board meeting back in October, and you did ask that very specific question. And unfortunately, I don't have that number. We go out based on complaints to look at signs. So I would say maybe 5 to 10% of all the signs in town are non-conforming if I were to,
Under the,
yes,
under the,
under the existing ordinance.
under the existing?
Correct.
Okay. And do we have an idea under the new, maybe? Because most likely it's more, correct?
It could be more, yes.
Yeah.
Is that all?
No.
Well, no, I mean for Leah.
Probably,
Thank you. Don't go too far.
I just, I also wanted to talk about, I guess my reflection on the 3-year sunset would be dependent on how many, what we would consider how many are non-conforming right now. I mean, if it was a small number, then the 3-year sunset seems to me that it's a long time. If it's a great number, then we're going to have a lot of work to do bringing them into conformity. So I guess, I had hoped that the town at some point would get an inventory of signs and so that we could work with something like that. Because it will make a difference on this 3-year sunset, whether we are talking about a ton of people or just a handful.
To me, it wouldn't make sense to go out and create a list until the ordinance is fully passed. Because if the council were to decide we're going to change the ordinance from X square feet to Y square feet, then they'd have to go back out and do it again.
Yeah,
That's
I thought there
right.
might be a database that was ongoing
Sure.
once you got assigned. I mean, that's what.
I can tell you that we have a working database of existing violations that have been sent out.
You do have that.
We do have that.
And is that in the 5 and 10% range of all signs? Is that what you were referring to?
If we were to literally go up and down every street in town, which we just simply don't have the time for, it would definitely increase. Like I said, we look into sign violations based on complaints that come into our office. The reason why we came up between myself and our assistant planner in Weston and Sampson was 5 years, is we had looked at various articles on signage, what other communities have done, and it ranged from 1 to 15 years. It seemed that the most number of communities that had an amortization or sunset clause was between that 3 to 5 year timeframe.
Anyway,
Because it gave the property owner enough time to realize
Yeah.
that they had to do something, as well as our time to provide the necessary enforcement after the timeframe.
thank you.
Keep going.
And I read the farm area. I forget now what section it's under, but in response to the concern about, or the right to farm, I'm just wondering, like those flags and stuff that are seasonal put up, that's still, when I read it, that's still okay under the farm area, correct? Let me just,
It's under exemptions.
yeah, so it's still okay, right? Those kinds of things, correct?
It was at previous town council meetings that a person came up and asked for some ability to have the signage, that type of signage for farms.
Yeah.
We purposely put that in there, and we're asking for the council's opinions and thoughts as to whether that should stay. We work that in based on
Yep.
the feedback we got.
Mary, if I may, and just to that point, because it was a question I had as well, and Gio, I think you may have the wrong section of law in it. It's 223.5 is the exemption when it comes to signage, not 4.
Can you repeat that, Rhode Island general law?
Oh, on page 11 in exemptions,
Not
H
yet.
A.
Before we change that, though, I think the exemptions in 23-5, but it references back to the definition, which I think is in 23-4. So it just may not be clear. We're not referencing exemption. We're referencing the definition of agricultural operations, which is in
Which is
4.
in 4, yes, you're
That makes
100%
sense?
right.
And I don't have 4 in front of me, so I'm guessing that that's the answer.
We may want to make reference to 5, just to make sure that one's covering the other, because the 5 is explicit.
I agree. That's
Yep.
much more clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I could just add on that point while we're on the farm issue, you actually have less flexibility than you typically would have, because this is a state statute that says you can't regulate around seasonal banners and agricultural operations. So it's a very limited exemption, but it's one that the state mandates that you have. And whether you put it in the new ordinance, it's still going to apply. And if we try to enforce against somebody with a farm stand with a banner advertising spring tomatoes, the courts would not let us enforce that.
Thank you.
Unless it's one of the, what if it's one of the feather signs?
Well,
Well,
Because feather signs are, or flappers. Yeah.
That is allowed.
Okay. I just want to make sure that everybody's hearing the same thing.
well, and yeah, and that's right. And I don't want to oversimplify. You're right. That's a great point. There are still limitations, and these are on state right of ways. You know, there's other limitations in the state statute, because obviously they can regulate their rights of way. Not, in theory, the state should only be regulating their things. We should be regulating our things, but it doesn't always work that way. But yes. And it needs to be removed at the conclusion of the season, which it references, right? So that's a very fact specific, interpretation.
Ms. McDowell, you have more or you want to wait?
No.
Mr. Reese, you have
Sure,
something else?
yep.
Okay.
Okay, now I would like to comment on the agricultural signs. I'd like to see less control is in relating to the ag signs. You do limit them, and I think you're trying to sell a perishable product in a limited amount of time, and you need maximum visibility. You have to make all your money in a few months, and you have to be loud and proud to do that. Ag needs much less control and visibility for a short amount of time. They were usually pretty good. End of the season, everything disappears. And I almost think the ag should be exempt from the flutter flags and things like that, because you're trying to attract attention to get people in, because it's weeks that you've got stuff. So that's my opinion.
And let me just be clear that this exemption that's in the draft now allows them to put the feather flags up, but limited.
But limited, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, maybe that's not enough for your piece of property. Maybe it isn't driving your business enough. I'd rather see them not limited on that.
Well,
I mean,
I
if
think
it gets crazy, you know.
I was going to say, we should have some limit. We can't have 45 of them out there for one
I don't
farm,
think they
but-
would.
No, I don't
They're
think so
permits.
either.
They
but-
don't have any money anyway.
But
Well,
Ms. White,
Continuing the discussion of section 11H under agriculture, number 3, where it does limit the number of signs, including the feather flags. Currently, it is stated as 2. I'd like to see that at 8 or 6, depending on the council's review. But I'd like to suggest 8 or 6.
agricultural under
11,
number 3, H,
Section 11,
H, subsection.
letter H, number 3.
And if you're looking at that, I would say go down to number 6 as well, because the 2 flags limit is in number 3, but then a single feather flag is pointed out in 6. So if you
Yeah,
wanted to
that-
have more than that, you'd probably have
as
to change
well.
it in both places.
Yes. Page 11.
Section 11.
Section H, agricultural operations,
Oh, sorry,
subsection
page
3.
11.
Yep.
Section 11, page 11.
Sorry, I'm looking at the red line.
No, it's okay.
And what was your suggestion again?
Increasing to
in
either
number-
6 or 8.
Under H, number 3 and number 6, those two items where it limits the number. Currently, it is limited as 2 signs, and then under 6, it's limited as 1 of the fabric feather.
So
Flag.
if a particular farm was selling both pumpkins and potatoes, they could put up a pumpkin sign, a potato sign. If they had sunflowers as well, they could put up a sunflower sign.
I would like to change both of those numbers from 2 and 1, both to 8. If the council.
You
is
want to make a
agreeable.
motion to that effect? I'd back a motion to do that.
A motion to,
Increase to 8, minimum of 8,
Maximum of 8.
maximum of 8. I'd like to see minimum.
So can I
But-
just ask a question?
Yes,
So,
yeah.
okay, so you want to do both of those to 8, so they could have 16 total of different type signs in one area? Is that what?
No, number 3 limits the total number.
Although it does limit
It
to
does limit
how many
one feather
streets they're
flag.
on. So if they're on a corner, that would double for a farm on the corner or on a corner,
Yeah.
which I,
So then that would be,
Do you have a suggestion of the number?
no,
you
I'm
think?
just trying to clarify it. So what the total would be with both of those? If you do an 8, would it be?
But so what she's saying is, well, if you go to 8 on 3,
Mhm.
under 6, you're also going to allow 8 feathered flags, or is it going to be 8 total combination of signs? And
I was
limit the
okay
number
with
of 8.
8 on both.
Okay.
So 16 total.
If
No,
it.
no, 8 total,
8 total.
Oh,
but they
eight.
all could be feathered flags, or
Right.
they could be feathered flags in a combination of others.
So just, because Leah and I are gonna be talking about this tomorrow, so H, section 3,
8.
no more than 8 exempt agricultural signs. You want 2 to be 8.
Correct.
And then in section 6, 8 of the 8 allowed signs may be feather flags, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay.
Does that read okay for you, Leah?
Whatever your heart desires.
Ms. McDowell?
Leah, in
Yes.
that, in regard to that area, I'm sure you've seen others. Did you take this from others? Is this what the norm is? Is that why you have the 2 and the 1 or what have you seen elsewhere, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Other towns, or what has the,
Yes,
um,
yeah.
I believe
Consultancy.
this came from maybe Gloucester or one of the other more rural communities in town.
I'm proud of the agriculture of our town, and I would like to highlight it and agree that it is seasonal. And I feel like it adds to our community. Motion to edit section 11, amend section 11, letter H, item 3 and 6. Both to change from the number 2 and the number 1 to the number 8.
Second.
any further questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. That was an easy one. Any others? Ms. Blank, keep going.
Question on page 8,
Are you looking at the clean or revised
the
copy?
clean. It is under section 8. Section 8, page 8, look at that. Section 11, page
Construction
8.
and maintenance.
Yes. And then under letter E. And then letter D, materials for temporary signs. And then number 3. It is saying feathered flags, flutter flags, sail signs, and similar vertical orientated wind activated signs are strictly prohibited.
That would
What-
be in any other property but agricultural.
Right, understood.
Mhm.
I just wanted to hear when it was in planning board or the general purview of what you have heard. I feel like allowing one per business or one per property would not ruin the aesthetics. And would help promote small businesses in our town. I am open to hearing from the public of if there's an issue with these, or if you had heard anything while discussing it at the planning board. I'd like to hear if if it had come up.
This had not come up in previous discussions. Some people may interpret the feather flags as visual clutter. Others may feel as though they could be a hazard if it's a windy day like today, and it may pop up out of the ground and hit someone or hit a car. That's why we have suggested that they be prohibited.
Okay. Looking for input from other counselors. I feel like this is a good way for small businesses to help support them, low cost, and if we, again, limit this to one per property or one per business, I'd just like to hear others' opinions.
I support your motion if you'd like to make a motion on that. I do agree with, to help out the small businesses and give them a chance to promote their business.
But if you're going to make the change, make it very specific to,
Yes,
they can have one during open hours, must
Yep.
be secured, and, things like that, so that we're not, it's not being interpreted otherwise. Make it very specific to
Right,
the change you want to make, please.
sure.
So can I just ask, based on what you're saying, Mr. President, the farm can put up their feather flags and leave them out overnight, but you're asking the businesses just come out and take it in?
Well, most of the
Kind of
farms
thing.
take them down when they're not open. So I'm not, but I would think that all of them should come down when you're not open.
And the new statute says that they can only leave it out when it's open.
Right. So,
For farms.
Regardless,
Yeah.
okay, farm. Yep, so you'd be asking the same for the business.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Some of the problems that we've run into with feather flags is a gas station that has a coffee mug on a feather flag. I think the general public knows that the gas station sells coffee inside. That's what we're trying to cut back on.
Understood.
yes, but if you get somebody to come in and have a cup of coffee, then they maybe buy a candy bar or a donut or bottles of water.
Understood.
I mean, our businesses struggle enough in town.
No, but I appreciate the counterpoint. That's what I was looking for, of what might not make this a good idea.
Mhm.
Any other input on that topic before I make a motion?
I can also just add, for what it's worth, that and when I've seen this in other towns come up, it's not every business that wants to put that up. And so some businesses that would prefer not to have more flags or banners or things like that now feel that they're at a disadvantage and almost forced to spend the money and invest in the same thing that the competing business down the street has. And so I've seen objections on that point as well. That's, it's just, you're just adding to the cost of having your average business in a town.
Understood. Thank you for that insight.
And I think we need to make sure that it's specific to the business that they're promoting.
Understood. I would like to make a motion on page 8 under section 8. The letters that I got. 8E D3 regarding the feather flags would like to make a motion that businesses to amend it to say that feather flags and such stated here, instead of strictly prohibited, one is allowed during open business hours specific to the business.
Should that be moved to another location rather than being underneath section 3? Should it be underneath someplace else where it should be allowed, like under temporary signs? Does that make a difference in terms of?
We have a section like general regulations.
Right now, it's under materials for temporary signs.
And Leah, can I ask just a clarifying question so I understand what we're trying to draft here?
Yes.
Does this definition, feather flags, flutter flags, sail signs, vertically oriented, wind activated, does that capture the, inflated arm waving guy?
I was about to ask the same thing as you were getting out of your mouth, but yes.
It definitely is trying to I don't know what the official name of that,
Yeah, I don't know.
but there's air
Fire
that shoots
flag.
up into that, so I would.
Yeah, it's not necessarily wind activated. Maybe they're blower activated. So I'm
That's
not
blower
sure.
activated. That has a motor.
Okay, all right. So,
Yeah, that has.
so we're not
that-
asking that be permitted.
No,
Okay,
just those sale signs.
okay.
If I have an official term for that type of sign, I will add it in here.
We can table it for now and discuss it later. Is there?
Anybody want to do a quick Google search?
The dancing man.
The dancing man sign?
Got it.
And somewhere else in here, I had seen a height limit
Hmm.
for flutter flags that I would like that same limit also.
So Leah.
The agricultural provision says 15 feet for the feather flag. I mean, we could just copy the language of the agricultural exemption, which is 15 feet in exposed, 15 square feet in exposed fabric, no taller than 12 feet, on a pole no taller than 15 feet. So overall height of 15 feet. Displayed only during the hours that the business is open to the public, removed and furled at other times, and set back at least 10 feet from any lot line and outside all sight distance triangles. So those 4 controls, I guess, might be worth copying into this provision that applies more generally to the feather flags.
Would it be possible in the future to come back after hearing more public comment on this if we table it for now?
What the public comments over, it's just our comments.
Right.
If you want to make that change and
No,
ask Leah to put
not
into
make
it.
the change now.
No, you can ask her to make the change and we can bring it back and vote on the entire ordinance as the amendments have been done and do it later.
Understood. I'd like to hear from the public, just in general on their feel of that before
But I did
putting
wanna-
the amendment in.
We'd have to schedule another public hearing to do that.
Could we, when
I-
we bring it back, have comments at that meeting before we approve
If you
it?
wanted to schedule another public hearing, yes.
Oh, it would have to be a public.
Yes,
Public hearing.
had to be advertised and be another public hearing.
So it'd be the-
Wacky waving.
So are we not allowed to have more comments today?
No.
Gio, we got the name. It's a skyman or a sky dancer.
The
Man.
chief is telling me kinetic advertising device, it includes in the definition that it uses a blower to make it kinetic. So I like that because that's what we're trying to distinguish here, right? It's not wind activated, it's otherwise kinetic. Right. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Kinetic?
I think, yeah.
I'm okay if we want to table this as well for now and leave it as is.
No. You give,
want to, because then we have to do this entire process.
No, I'm saying,
no,
yeah, rescind.
no, you can make your change.
You can make.
I'll do what I want.
Jim is the, Jim Reardon is the consultant.
He is, he should be
He
online.
has his hand up. If you can promote him real quick. Thank you. Hi, Jim.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing this evening?
Well, thank you.
Great. So I thought I would weigh in just a little bit on the name of that sign. I believe it's called an inflatable sign. Sometimes it's also called an air dancer, sky dancer, inflatable tube man or air inflated advertising figure.
Yes, we were able to get that here. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
So either way, they would not be allowed. Anything that is mechanically elevated or inflated would not be allowed. It would just be the feather flags. Madam Planner, where would you like to, between you and Geo, we got to figure out where to stick that, that's all.
So the inflatable tube man, dancing man would be under
Prohibited.
prohibited, while the feather flags, I think, should be moved to under signs allowed without a permit.
Okay? Did you get that?
Request to rescind that
Yeah.
change. Apologies, Leah.
You don't want to make that change.
I do not want to make that change.
So you're,
I had wanted information on that and why it was there.
okay.
But I would like to take back that motion.
So it will remain that
Remain
feather
as
flags,
is.
feather flags,
Unless
butterflies.
somebody
veil
else wants to
signs.
make the motion. Which-
No, I'm
so
I'm
hang on.
not.
Hang on a quick second, just Charlie, you made a motion and Charlene, you seconded it, correct? So if you would rescind your second, then you can rescind your motion, and we'll move on to Ms. McDowell.
Yeah, I'll rescind my.
Thank you.
second.
We'll rescind my
Perfect.
motion.
Now, there's nothing on the
Thank you.
table right now. Ms. McDowell.
Okay, but now we have brought up something that probably should be in there, correct, more specific, correct?
Correct. So
Right?
Is inflatable tube man?
yeah,
The sky man, the this man, the that man, you know?
any inflatable, mechanically inflated signs should be disallowed,
Prohibited.
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 So does that need a motion? Or
Yes.
to clarify
If
there?
it's not in there, then we
It's
need to add
not.
it.
So I'm assuming we should clarify that through a motion, right?
Correct.
So I move that we prohibit
Mechanically
those
inflated,
3 or 4 different descriptors,
just mechanically inflated signs.
mechanically inflated signs.
I think that covers the whole basis.
think so?
Yeah.
I'll second your motion.
Any further discussion on that? And that would go under, obviously, prohibited signs. That would be,
8 sub D sub 3,
what, sub 3 or sub 4?
sorry, 8 sub E,
Yes.
sub D sub 3.
Yes.
So we're gonna add that into feather flag signs, and any
Mechanically inflated signs
signs.
and similar vertically oriented wind activated signs.
For now, okay. There was already a second. Right. Okay,
So Leah, can I ask, just for clarification, not that I heard this from the audience at all, how do we regulate inflatable Santas on the front lawn in December?
it's not a sign. No. No, we're not.
Why is people talking?
It's a great question. It's not a inflatable Santa is not a sign.
They seem to be extending into all sorts of seasons, so those are,
Oh, yeah, there's pumpkins. Yes,
So I have, a question as far as the temporary signs, yard signs.
second.
Oh, sorry.
You're moving on before the motion is finished. There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor of banning mechanically inflated signs signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Now you can go on to the next one. Thank you.
So page 9, temporary signs.
are you in the clean or revised version?
I'm in the clean copy, yep. at the bottom, so yard signs, residential lots. It says 90 consecutive days, no more than 120 days per calendar year, limited to 2. I'd like to change that at least to 4 for the limit. You know, it's your own property, and, you know, if you want to put 2 different kinds of signs or 3 different kinds of signs, I think, you know, it's your property and you should be able to put what you like as far as, I'm at page
The
9.
chart.
Yeah, I'm at the bottom, at the chart, yeah. Oh, yeah, and then it goes into page 10, sorry.
You're not just fine. I missed that, sorry.
Yep.
So you're on the yard signs, residential lots, 6 square feet, 4 feet, maximum height, 90 days,
Yeah.
more than 120,
um,
and up to 2 per 50 square feet of, 50 feet of frontage, excuse me, not square feet.
But I'm sorry, you're asking to
To go to
increase from
4.
2 to 4.
Yeah,
Charlene, if you don't mind, if
Sure.
I could just piggyback on your comment. So that's a section I actually had a problem with, and I'm just thinking about recent developments that have happened in Pawtucket and in South Kingstown when it came to having those limitations, especially the 120, which is actually the exact time that a Supreme Court case said that you could not limit political speech
mhm.
in town. And so I'm just curious if we're doing that just on residential lots. I'm thinking about, my original thought when researching this one section was, as much as I don't want to think about COVID, when my kids had a sign out that said, "Thank you, teachers," they had it out all school year. And according to this, we hit the max duration halfway into the school, about halfway into the school year. So I agree with Councilwoman Patton about, we do need to, I think this section does need to be amended. Just because I think like we're probably gonna be opening up ourselves to an unnecessary can of worms. Sorry. My suggestion would be when it comes to yard signs on residential lots, probably removing the max duration and the quantity limit.
Mhm. Making it unlimited.
Oh, yeah.
My question out of curiosity is how do you monitor that? Are you, it's like parking in an illegal zone, you can put a chalk mark and come back in 3 hours. How do you do this 90, 120 days? And is that just going to be a burdensome?
We
project,
have,
you know?
we have particular individuals and emails that we receive constantly telling us about violations that happen in town all the time.
It's,
Not all of them.
all of our zoning in general is complaint-based. So people make a complaint about somebody or something, and then staff goes and looks at it.
Charlene, what was the number you had wanted to go to? 2 to what?
4.
She wanted to go to 2 to 4. My suggestion was to remove the day limitations on both of them and remove the number restriction.
I feel like there still should be a quantity limit. Question for clarification. Where it says up to 2 per 50 feet of street frontage. Does that mean if you have more than 50 feet of street frontage, you would have X times, however,
Yes.
Amount.
If you had 100 feet, you'd have 4.
every 50 you have?
Yes.
So
You have 4 and then it would change. If she wants 4, then you'd have what, twice that amount? If we change it.
Can we just put the up to 4? Do we have to put the 50 foot of street footage in there?
You can do whatever you want, I guess. I would,
I mean, rather
I would be
than-
apt to leave it at 4 per 50 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
I
4
mean-
per 50 feet is more reasonable.
Mhm.
I mean, we're still gonna have people complain that I can't put a, if you keep the time limit, I think the time limit should go away personally as well. And give people a right to express their views on their own personal property.
Well, with the 90 consecutive days, if you have, and I'll just go for the political signage, if you have somebody who has to run in a primary here in Rhode Island, that's the first week of September, those signs are going to be out in August, and the election's not till November, you're already at 120 days.
Right.
By this ordinance, they would have to take their signs down before the election.
And legally speaking, the election actually starts on the first day of declarations.
So, Ms. Patton, do you want to make a motion about the sign? We can go to eliminating the
The
timeframe.
max duration. Sure. I'll make a motion that on page 9, under the yard sign residential lots, we remove the duration and just make it unlimited and up to 4 signs per 50 feet of street footage.
Second. Are we doing this for residential and non-residential?
There you go.
No, just residential. Um, I was looking at residential.
We'll tackle that one
Yeah,
next.
I was doing residential.
Okay, thanks.
So the motion is to remove the restrictions of time on yard signs for residential lots and maximum of 4 per 50 feet of frontage. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Now, Mr. Gleason, would you like to do the same to non-residential lots, which has a larger square foot of face? Meaning if somebody wanted to put them on their business property.
Just trying to think. I mean, they should have the same privilege that a residential person would have, but I think it would be a little excessive because they're going to have typically more frontage. I guess I'd like to make a motion to eliminate the time frame duration on the non-residential lots and leave the signage as is. I mean, I'm hoping this.
Sorry, for clarification, you want to keep it non-residential lots, remove the duration, but keep the quantity limit.
Up to 2
Yeah.
per 50.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, just because, I'll second that.
Yeah.
My only concern with this is that we'll have, especially if the square footage is a lot larger on a non-residential lot. So you have 12 square feet as opposed to 6 square feet, which is a much larger sign.
It's doubled.
And if we make it unlimited, we'll have signs. I mean, well, we already do now, signs that are out there forever.
We do
Yard
have some,
sales.
if you don't mind, Mr. President, we do have signs there forever, but I think that there are rules and regulations when it comes to the maintenance of signs that are in this ordinance now, that I think gives a little bit more, I would say, ensures a little bit more compliance to those that are on non-residential lots. So if a flat, let's say an H-frame breaks and you got a sign going up there, it is now on everyone to be able to repair that within the 48-hour time limit before, or assuming that a complaint gets filed.
The other thing, I guess, is the question that Leah might be able to comment on. It seems to me in the planning board notes, there was a conversation about the commercial signs because some contractors use them to block the public view while the lots are being built, but they ultimately go away. Wasn't that part of the discussion?
One of the planning board members did bring that up. I did not modify that within the proposed ordinance here. I didn't necessarily agree. Construction signs are essentially temporary and they do come down. If you feel otherwise, feel free to bring it up.
So that's actually different from non-residential lots, but it could apply.
I think they were referring to when they put a
Subdivision.
fence up
Mhm.
around a property that belongs, like the senior center had the
Right.
fence all the way around and then being put
Their signs.
Correct.
their sign all the way around it so
Right.
you couldn't see what was going on. So that, which helps.
So that's specific to the construction part.
That's
Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you.
I think on this one that I feel like the time limit is still a good thing to have.
And can I just ask, and I should have noticed this a few minutes ago, but the category that we're looking at here is temporary signs. And so if we're taking away a time limit, then it's not really a temporary sign anymore. So even in the one we just approved on the residential lots, really what you're saying is that you can have 4 political campaign signs or whatever, the small, that's 2x3s year round. And so it's not really temporary. So I'm wondering if that really should be moved to a different section.
Or could you call it something else?
Call it something else.
I just posed the question, do we want to look like Cranston and Johnston during? Do we want to look like Cranston and Johnston during political season?
I will say, as much as I know where you're going with this, I don't think the Supreme Court will care if we look like
Mhm.
Johnston or Cranston.
But-
Just saying.
You know, to Gio's point, maybe going back and doing 6 months instead of, since, you know, like you said, the election season starts on June 26th-ish. I don't know what day it is this year. It's somewhere in that ballpark.
What, primary?
No, for declaration.
Declaration's, June 22nd.
So
So if
just, if we did 6 months, that would take us to right after Thanksgiving.
But if you're in the primary and then you make it to the real election, not into politics. Then June, July, August, September,
October, November.
then
So,
6 months.
yeah, first Tuesday after the first one.
So that would make the max duration 180 days.
Can I just
Yes.
throw a curveball into that whole thing? I guess under this particular spot here of temporary signs, you would have yard sale signs in there. I don't think you'd want them up for X amount of days, you know? So we've taken the time limit off them. Political signs, I guess what I'm suggesting is, why don't we have a specific section about yard sale signs, rules and regs regarding them, and political signs, and just have them stand alone?
We took away political signs. You don't want
Yeah.
to talk about political
You
signs. They
can't.
fall under temporary signs.
It goes back to that basic provision. If you have to read the sign to enforce your law, you've violated the First Amendment. So it's the content can't matter.
Okay, so political signs now can stay on residential lots forever, right?
Based on the amendment that
And-
we just.
And yard
discussed.
sales signs as well.
Yes.
Okay.
So you could, to move to reconsider that and limit it to 6 months or 9 months, and that certainly covers your whole campaign season. And then it would fit again under temporary, right? So at some point, that sign has to come off every
Yep.
year. Do it for 3 months in the winter, whatever.
I think
think we
I think 6 months is,
I think 6
Perfect.
months is adequate.
I think we should leave non-residential lots as is, and then once we vote on that, possibly revisit the residential lots.
is it easier for days or months? Is it specific 180 days? I mean,
I think days is easier.
okay. And
I
we'll go
do-
with,
I
we'll
do
live 30-day
prefer
months.
Days to months, though.
Okay. So 6 months,
So-
30 days, 180 days.
Yes.
Okay.
We have to vote on non-residential first.
Non-residential, the way I left it was we've removed the time frame. So left the quantity of signs, but removed the time frame. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
But you can rescind that motion
Or a friendly amendment to that.
Amend.
motion.
or amend it to the 180 days to match the, if we go back to the residential signs and make that 180.
Let's just vote on it the way it is. I'm not going to agree with 180 on the residential.
No, I'm sorry, we're still on the non-residential, right?
We're still
We
on,
are, but
we are
if
on
we want to go
non-residential
back
right
and
now.
make the match, I'm not going to vote for that one either. So that's just my preference.
So Dave, are you going to keep non-residential the same?
No, right now,
Okay.
non-residential on the floor is removing the time frame.
Yes,
That's the motion.
that's correct.
That's the motion, second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
Listen,
The motion was, to-
Put it now for both.
no,
no, it's only.
it is not.
Just
Right now, it is a 3-3 tie because you didn't say yay or nay.
Ms. McDowell,
But the-
microphone, please.
But the motion is
Sorry.
unlimited,
Correct.
yes.
But since it is now a 3-3 tie with a
Yeah,
non-vote,
I'm not for, I want 6 months,
Okay.
so,
so the motion, so you're a nay.
yes.
Thank you. So the motion fails 3-4.
Mr. President, can I get a motion to reconsider the vote on the residential lots?
There a second.
second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. The motion to reconsider is 5-2. Would you like to create your new motion, please?
Yes, I would like to
The
go,
amendment.
I would like to amend the max duration on the site. I think that the 6-month period is adequate and addresses some of the concerns.
So your motion is to change the max duration is to 180 days.
Yes.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
All
So,
those.
So I just want to comment on that. I'm not going to vote in support of that because I just think it takes away a person's ability to put a sign for what they may believe in, whether it's political or anti something or other, or I got something for sale here on their own personal property.
So I'm not,
Yeah.
so I could,
Yeah.
I see your point,
Yeah.
but I think the fact that we say 180 consecutive days, but we're not maxing it out, it literally will still allow for someone to pull it off for a day and put it back on.
It does.
So it doesn't necessarily, it creates a duration, but it doesn't cap. And I think that when we're talking about Supreme Court cases, the cap was the issue.
Okay. So if you could just repeat that motion again.
The motion is the max duration is 180 consecutive days
Okay.
and not adding more after that.
All right. Thanks. I would support that.
Okay. You good? Okay, all right.
Can
All-
you repeat who motion, second motion?
The motion was.
Reconsider, second, and then
Motion, second.
Thank you.
For 180 days to be the max duration, consecutive days. Excuse me.
Previous one,
The reconsideration,
no,
the non-residential.
residential, it's 5 to 2.
it was 3 to 4.
That was 3 to 4, but then there was another one.
5 to 2 was for reconsideration, was David and Charlene.
Well,
David,
it was
Gleason,
for,
sorry.
it was to eliminate the time frame. That was Charlene and myself were against that.
So the current motion on the floor is go to 180 days, maximum consecutive underneath the yard signs residentials. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-1.
Mr. President, can I get a motion to reconsider on the yard signs non-residential lots?
The what?
To make the non-residential lot, what the purpose is to make, I'll go ahead and say, it's to make the non-residential lots and the residential lots the same, to make them equal at the 180 days.
Second on the motion.
So the motion is to reconsider the previous vote on the non-residential lots of not changing the time frame, or changing the time frame.
Changing the
Eliminating
timeframe
timeframe that failed.
to equal the two. Well, at this
Okay.
point, it's just the motion
Just
to
to
reconsider.
reconsider. Motion to reconsider. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-1. Ms. Blank in dissent. Now,
Mr. President, my motion is to make the max duration on site equal to residential lots at 180 consecutive days.
Second.
any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed 5-2. Ms. Blank and Ms. Patton in dissent. Any other sections, phrases, definitions, time lengths?
I'd like to talk about art.
Mr. Gleason?
Can you explain category about what's considered art and how that affects this ordinance?
Mr. Gleason, can you tell us where we're at?
So section
I
11.
didn't write it
excuse me,
down. to be
Page
honest with you.
11. Under exemptions, number F, visual art, works of visual art that, one, are not used to identify a business, product, or service. Two, do not include logos, slogans, brand names, or similar commercial elements. Three, are not illuminated. Visual art expressing personal, ideological, or political views are protected as non-commercial speech and are not regulated as signs under the ordinance, but must comply with dimensional and use restrictions as noted elsewhere in the zoning code. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to make sure.
Is that typical what people are adding to their ordinances? Do you pull that from another town or city?
I just wanted to, that was one of the comments that our solicitor had focused on as well, and we did add that while they are exempt, they must comply with the dimensional and use restrictions as noted elsewhere in the code. Now, elsewhere in the code would be Article 4 dimensional regulation table, that they still must comply in terms of height and setbacks. So I think the solicitor had mentioned, well, what about like a gaggle of gnomes or something, or a 20-foot Madonna, how do you regulate that? So that's why we added the dimensional and use regulations would be applicable. Visual art is very subjective, so that's why it's exempt. What, is there something specific that you're looking for?
Well, I think your explanation helps. That my biggest thought was who determines whether it's art, but I guess the more of a concern is everything can be art. It just has to fall into parameters that we're establishing based on size and quantity and things of that nature.
Well, that's one thing a content neutral sign ordinance
Yep.
can review is the maximum size of a sign. So if you want to consider it, well, if this is a sign and somebody wants to put up 100 of them, at least we can determine the size and where the setbacks are and the height of them.
So if somebody wanted to buy one of those elephants and spray paint Ray's shell on the side, since
Mhm.
they're no longer in business, that made it easy for me.
Correct.
They couldn't spray paint Ray's shell on the side,
Mhm.
but they could put the elephant in their front yard.
Yes.
If it fell into a size requirement.
Correct.
Other
So
than
they
the
couldn't
fact
get-
you're dealing with 3-dimensional as opposed to 2-dimensional signs, that's not an issue.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Feel comfortable with it?
So you're good with the clarification?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Ms. Blank, you had something else?
Yes. We're elected to represent our community as best I can. I always try to. Is there a way? I don't know to whom I'm directing this. In the spirit of community building, that if we surpass X percent of our population or 500 complaints on a particular sign as a community, it is then taken away?
No. So that's a very open-ended question, but I can give you the easy answer, which is no. And so that, you know, the reason I say that so abruptly is that, you know, the First Amendment rights that we're dancing around here are not, democratic rights. They're, you know, you can't vote away somebody's civil rights. And that's essentially what that would be doing is, you know, you have a change.org petition that gets to 500. Doesn't matter if somebody has a right, they have a right.
So if a business sign, if we had 100% of the community say, I'm not in favor of this, of a particular graphic on a business sign?
I don't believe that would, you know, again, very fact-based, and there are things that are prohibited, that, you know, the First Amendment does not cover, for sure. But it's not, it can't be something driven by a popular vote. It's got to be equally applied and based on some objective standard and criteria that you apply. You know, the same as Mr. Gleason's question on art. You know, as long as you're consistent in distinguishing between what you view as art and what you view as, you know, under our definition of sign, which includes information, includes, you know, different things like that. You know, as long as you're consistent, you're okay. But to leave
Even
it,
if that would be consistent throughout the town?
well, it has to be consistent. The enforcement has to be consistent throughout the town. But the fact that 500 people don't like a particular sign can't drive the code enforcement.
With written, written complaints?
No, I mean, they are complaint driven. So if they're violating the objective standards in the statute, one is enough to, you know, draw that to the town's attention and start an enforcement action. But it can't be based on the content. And I think what you're suggesting is that.
No, not on the content, just the number of complaints that the town has
So
received.
the complaints would be based on the content.
Gotcha.
So I think you're getting in the swamp one way or the other.
Thank you for the clarification.
Ms. Patton? Sure.
I just have a question as far as signs on businesses that have, you know, had their signs up for many years. The changes, if we, you know, take on these new changes, would they be like grandfathered in or
That's the 3-year timeframe.
is that, Okay,
Yes,
all right.
that you can make 3 years, 2 years. 3 years to me is a comfortable window so that businesses don't have to have a
And would they?
sizable expense to replace a sign.
Okay, do they
potentially
have to do
sizable expense.
paperwork for that, or is it just?
It
How
would
does
come
that-
into effect. I don't, we wouldn't, or we would,
Okay.
I don't, Leah, we would inform each individual
Okay,
business on an individual basis. We wouldn't do a mass mailing.
right, okay, thank you.
Ms. McDowell, you got another?
When I looked at this, where are the fines? It refers to fines.
Refers to fines.
Section, that's a good,
Ele-
I was gonna bring that up. It's at the end of this thing.
Generally.
Why are you looking, Ms. Hitchin, it basically says, you can appeal to the zoning board of review in accordance with Rhode Island General, excuse me, I put the wrong section there. If you have a violation that you fail to cure or appeal, which would be section 16,
16.
D. No, not in D. C. CC. It talks about levy fines authorized by section 255-3100 of the Code of Ordinances. I could not find that.
I think
Okay,
that was a copy paste error, which we will fix.
Can you show us where that is and what the fines look like? Is that of interest to you?
Yeah, that's.
I mean, some of the things like
Said that.
under our plastic bag ordinance, it'll tell you if you don't adhere to it, the fine is X.
Yep.
This one, you have to go outside the ordinance to see the fines. And I think we should know what the fines look like. Personally.
We're gonna have our zoning enforcement officer come up.
Hi, lady.
Hi.
Hi, Aaron.
Hi, I'm the zoning enforcement officer. Fines are issued by the court when we issue a violation. They have a period to remedy the situation. And if they don't, then they get summoned to court and the court issues the fine. That's how our system works.
I think the question is what are the levels of fines?
The levels of fine are set by the court. We don't have a set level of fine in our ordinance.
Okay.
I think that's what Leah said, that was a typo carried over.
So if the
that we
judge is
take care
having a
of.
particular bad day and doesn't like you, they could fine you $1,000, but if they like you, it could be $10.
The way I read it was no more than 30 days in jail, fines no more than $1,000 per violation or both.
Right, that's
That's pretty much it,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So it's up to the discretion of the municipal court judge. Okay.
correct.
In the time that you've been here, 3 or 4 years now, between the two of you, has there ever been a sign enforcement brought before the municipal court?
No,
Correct,
we've issued violations, but mostly come in compliance. They have come in compliance for the most part, yeah.
They've been assigned a fine and pay them? Is that what you're saying?
No, before the fine is issued, they have come in compliance.
Okay,
They've been told they have
Gotcha.
a violation.
okay, thank you.
And they
They
correct
fix
it.
it, they fix it.
Correct.
Yep,
Correct.
very good.
Hold on. Ms. Blank?
I was just gonna ask, do you need a motion to fix the typo?
No.
No.
Okay.
Section 255 of the town code, I believe, is fees or fines.
I just want to make sure you.
Ms. McDowell?
So do we have to also put something in, that it's at the discretion of the municipal court judge? Just for more clarity? If it can be so, if the fine can be, from here or there, should we say it's in the, I don't know.
I mean, we could, it's. I'd have to
Yeah.
rely on our solicitor for that. Our preference in the years that Mr. Lindo and I have been here is to be business friendly and work work with the resident or the business and not have to get to the point of going to court.
Okay.
We're not saying anything, we're just.
No, well, it's a broad interpretation of what the judge could potentially do. For the town.
So with this new ordinance, I know that how you've dealt with it in the past, do you foresee the municipal courts getting more involved with the new ordinance such as what we're presenting?
I see that the new ordinance is a great tool to have in our toolbox for businesses, residents that are asking for a specific in terms of, well, what's the maximum size I can have? What is required for a permit? What type of materials can I use? Where can I locate the sign? It doesn't pinpoint the things that most people want to see fixed, but it does include a time frame for amortization. It is definitely an upgrade to the sign ordinance that we currently have. Is it perfect? No, but Weston and Sampson, our consultant, and Aaron and I did the best we could to modernize and make the improvements we could to keep it content neutral.
Yeah, I think it's a great job.
Any other corrections, changes, updates from the council? Questions?
Just a clarification on, can you just explain, because I know it's going to come up down the road, the concept of de facto signs?
The concept of de facto signs.
That might be a question for our solicitor,
What,
all the way at the end.
I'm looking at
It has to be,
the,
it has to be in context.
I think it has to do with people not
yeah.
complying. That's not going to, when you're not in compliance.
That's just a catch-all to basically say if a sign, it's distinguished between a temporary and a permanent sign. So if the sign is up for however many days they put in there, but it's essentially no longer covered under the temporary sign provisions. It's a permanent sign.
So we actually have to change that section as well.
Because it's,
yeah, thank you
It's
for
changed.
catching that.
yeah. I'm not sure what the motion would be.
No, it was just, that it says 120 in this cumulative, well, it says cumulative days. So it has to be 180 consecutive days
Oh, I see what you mean.
in this section.
Well, sorry, can I just have 30 seconds to look at this?
Yes, read the two of them together.
Yeah, well, I guess that's fine because yeah, those are the only two that have the 100 and the 90 then and then the 120. The other ones are shorter periods. So yeah, that would be the change we would need.
So it would change to any temporary sign that remains in place for more than
180 consecutive or
days.
cumulative.
or cumulative. That was an issue with.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were to change that to 180 consecutive or 180 cumulative, you'd actually have
A permanent.
a 6-month window
Yeah.
that would be enforceable.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Would you like us to make that a motion and make that change?
Explain that again, if you would.
So it's the de facto signage basically would, if you left the language the way it is, it would overrule the two amendments you made tonight. And bring it back to
90 and
it would take them out of the temporary category and after 120 days, it would put them in the permanent category requiring permits and what have you.
Right.
So if you were to change 16B sub A, where it references 90 consecutive or 120 cumulative to 180 consecutive or 180 cumulative, that will now make this mesh with the changes you made tonight.
Okay. So this would be somebody who has a grand opening sign up. as well, not just political signs and things like that.
Any temporary sign.
Okay.
Yeah, but if it's there for a year, suddenly you're subject to the permanent signage requirements, getting a permit, whatever. that
So
might
we
be.
need a motion to change subsection B, de facto permanent signage. Any temporary sign that remains in place for more than 180 consecutive days or more than 180 cumulative days within a 12-month period is deemed permanent sign and must meet all the standards of permanent signs. Could we have a motion to make that change?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Any other adjustments or changes? Hearing none. Is there a motion to pass the ordinance as amended?
So moved.
Second.
One more question, if you.
Yes, Mr. Gleason, yes.
So the last statement in the ordinance is that the ordinance will take effect upon passage. I guess the only thing I would like to see is a final copy. So if I could change that verbiage that says, based on a finalized copy signed by the council president and approved by the town council.
Well,
Just the changes, so see them all in black and white.
if you want to do that, the easiest would be if, and this is, I don't know how much time it will take you to do this, but can you have it done before Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Yes, so we can put it on the agenda for next Monday, or do you want the time to do it until like the first meeting in
Oh.
April?
I will have it done by Wednesday.
I think that's doable. I would also ask, though, that the motion include that, that council and staff be allowed to make other edits, administrative edits, because there were a couple of other items that were brought up tonight that weren't formal amendments.
Right.
And I'm still digging on that fine language. I want to make sure we're good on that too, so.
So do we want to pass it this evening? If we pass it this evening with the amendments, then we don't have to have another public hearing. Do we have to have another public hearing to make the final?
No, you've
approval?
had your public hearing.
Okay.
If you want to see the cleaned up version before the vote, I think that's perfectly fine. You can continue this to the next meeting. And as long as we get this noticed and up by Wednesday.
We have a meeting next.
No, that's what I mean as
Yeah.
long as it gets there by Wednesday, I don't
Yeah.
see any problem voting on it as a
We technically have till
continued matter.
Thursday, but we usually get it done by Wednesday.
Yeah.
I'll be at that
If-
meeting.
If it's not doable, we'll just do it in the first meeting of April. Is that okay with everybody if it doesn't happen overnight? Literally overnight.
No pressure.
Okay. Ms. Fayero and Ms. Blank, would you remove your motions to approve it this evening, and we'll approve it on Monday night? Remove your second,
First.
rescind your second, and he'll
Res-
rescind it.
Rescind my second.
I'll rescind my motion.
Okay.
So it's a motion to continue.
A motion will be to place this for final adoption on Monday night.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And if Monday night rolls around and it's not 100% ready for prime time, we'll just forward it to the next meeting. Everybody's comfortable with that?
Yeah. Motion to adjourn.
Is there any-
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?